Hello and welcome to our next video in our series of how to embed human rights education within your school or setting. Where to begin? So you may be at the point now where you've decided to teach human rights at your school, or you've got an interest and you want to be able to influence others to deliver human rights. But like any good initiative, it can often be overwhelming knowing where to start. The first thing that we suggest that you do is familiarise yourself with our website. Have a look on it. It's got absolutely so much on there in terms of how schools and children have taken human rights education and adapted it within their setting to suit their context. It's full of poetry. It's full of where pupils have created drama or used the spoken word to articulate how human rights has had an impact on them. You'll also see on there the work that was undertaken to develop the International Human Rights Festival in Greater Manchester in 2022. And that international festival that took place over 4 days allowed schools and young people to be able to come and share their knowledge to demonstrate how they can be ripples of hope for the future alongside prominent human rights activists. On the website, you'll also see our schemes of learning. And what we've done with our schemes of learning is we've tried to make it very, very clear if you are in an early years or primary setting, how you can use it and how it can be adapted to you. And then we've been very clear that for secondaries, it might look slightly different. I'm going to give you a couple of examples from the secondary sector now. You'll see here 2 schemes of learning. One is about creating positive change, and the second is about movements for change. You may think they're the same. They're not, although there's some golden threads that run between them. So each scheme of learning starts with outlining the scope of the content. And what you'll see is through these 2 examples that each one is designed to be delivered over a period of 6+ hours. You'll see when you look at this the commonalities and threads that run across all of them, but you will notice the difference in the content. So, for example, creating positive change starts with the history of the UN and the history of how the Articles of Human Rights were actually developed. You'll do a lot of work in there with likes of looking at Eleanor Roosevelt. You'll see how Bobby Kennedy took this as part of his campaign. And then you'll look at perhaps some more influential people such as Annika George or Sir Nicholas Winton and how their movement and how they have created positive change within certain communities. You'll also as well see on the movements for change that what we've tried to do is to kind of take a more human form and more people who perhaps aren't as well known, who have created movements for change within their small communities or wider communities. And we start with some lesser known movements for change. For example, the 5th Pan-African National Congress in Manchester in 1945. And we look at some of the individuals who contributed to that movement. That's really important because what we don't want to do with these schemes of learning is make it so that young people think that they can't be agents themselves. We want them to see how human rights movements have started from a small ripple of hope. And we hope that what you will see within this is that we've achieved it. You'll see from the examples of the scheme of learning how it is structured. So it begins with an overview of the objectives. We talk about the key vocabulary that you will be wanting to use within there and the key people. We also include the articles of human rights that each scheme of learning will cover. And on our website, we've got animated videos in terms of what the articles of human rights are, but we also share links towards the United Nations website so you can find out a little bit more. Each scheme of learning sets out the objectives for the session, and there are a series of activities for the pupils to work through and guidance for the delivery for the teacher. We are not trying to tell you how to teach. That's not what we're about at Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights UK. What we're about is giving you the best bets so that you can fulfill the aims of the lesson. And you will probably want to adapt it in terms of the pupils who are in front of you, based on their prior knowledge, based on the context that you are working in, based on the individual needs that are there. But what we hope we've been able to do is to be able to share with you what we think a good series of lessons will look like on this topic, and how we can guide you and your pupils to use their oracy skills, to develop the written word, to be able to fulfill those objectives, and ultimately to support their pupils' knowledge and understanding. Our resources have been absolutely checked and referenced, so that what we're not doing is that we're not providing you with resources or material that you might look at and think, we don't want that, that's not for our pupils. We've used video links and museum websites and made sure that there is nothing that is age inappropriate whatsoever. We've taken every step to do this. And whilst we know that some of the texts may be quite challenging to less confident readers, what we've done is we've suggested ways that you can adapt that as well for your young people. But ultimately, you know the pupils who are sat in front of you, and therefore we hope that you'll be able to use these resources to adapt as you see fit. There are images, as you can see, that we use throughout. This one is from the 5th Pan-African National Congress. And we use these images as starting points, or also when pupils have learnt a little bit more, to interrogate what it is that they're telling us as sources. We're not historians. That's not what we're aiming to do. We're not aiming to supplement history teaching. But what we have done is that we have developed our resources looking at some of the best ways to teach history that is out there. As you can see, some of the texts may be a little bit more challenging for some of your less able readers or pupils who are less confident in their reading. But we use these speeches throughout so that young people are able to develop their own speeches, their own way of talking, their own way of influencing, and perhaps look at patterns within these speeches that can support them. Throughout the schemes of learning, we reference the Articles of Human Rights, and we make sure that they visit the same ones regularly over time. As I say, on the website, there's an accompanying animation that supports the Articles of Human Rights. You'll see this one pops up quite a few times, Article 26, that everyone has the right to education. And I think that this is very important because we are very conscious that what we are doing is delivering this in an education setting. And what we are very clear about is making sure that this space is safe and that teachers are guided so that no child or no member of staff in that classroom feels isolated or feels victimised by the things that are being talked about within there. Equally, in terms of the rights to education, we talk a lot about responsibilities to others. And there is that misunderstanding of human rights, that it's all about my rights. What we seek to do is we seek to share with you and your pupils how human rights are not just your individual rights, but is about your responsibilities towards others and making sure that their rights are met as well. What's the difference to rights respecting schools? We know that many schools work towards accreditation in rights respecting schools, and RFK Human Rights UK complements this work. It is not there to supplement, it is not there to do instead of rights respecting schools. What we're able to do is provide schemes of learning and guides that not only teaches human rights, but also provides the opportunities and the tools for children to see how they can become change makers, how they can make a difference and influence their communities to come together for greater impact. Bobby Kennedy was very, very clear that actually it was the youth that could make a difference, that youth were the ripples of hope. And we hope through our schemes of learning that some of your young people will take this and go on to make positive change in the future. So to reiterate, what we've tried to achieve is we've tried to design the lessons so that they can be adapted to your own school circumstances. And whilst we've not dictated a specific length of time for each lesson, we anticipate that they will take place over a couple of hours. We've taken the view in the construction of the lessons that we want the pupils to gain knowledge, the golden threads through each of the schemes. And we want that knowledge to be able to be built on so they can apply it to different scenarios and to provide a guide that enables them to become more independent as the scheme progresses. The initial lessons and activities in each scheme are quite heavily scaffolded, and that is because we assume that it is new knowledge that is being acquired. You know your pupils best. You know that you will know whether it is too heavily scaffolded. What we hope has been created for you is helpful, that in that the lessons are designed and built upon an understanding of how children learn alongside our own expertise and experience of human rights education.